Один из самых известных раввинов нашего времени, Манис Фридман, в прямом эфире отвечает на вопросы наших слушателей. Вы услышите мнение самой мудрой книги человечества – Библии, о самых сложных проблемах, стоящих перед современным миром. Присылайте ваши вопросы заранее на наш имейл info@rusa.fm или во время передачи по СМС 347 460 08 77.
Добрый день всем, кто сейчас настроен на радио РУСА. У нас в эфире самая духовная, самая светлая, самая мудрая передача всей недели. Это передача, которую мы проводим с раввином Манисом Фридманом. И называется она «Thank God It's Tuesday», потому что именно в этот день самый вообще мудрый, великий, светлый раввин нашего времени, Rabbi Manis Friedman, проводит с нами это время и дает нам такое замечательное вдохновение, позитивный взгляд на жизнь, решение каких-то эмоциональных проблем и вообще вдохновляет на будущее. Так что вот сегодня я хочу с ним поговорить именно о том, что, вроде бы все проснулись. Вот проснулся мир, все мы видим по-другому. Ну и что теперь? Вот именно с этим вопросом я обращаюсь к нашему самому мудрому ведущему радио РУСА, раввину Манису Фридману. Rabbi Manis Friedman, hello, thank God it's Tuesday. And we're so happy to have you on the radio and to be able to speak with you. And of course, after so much is happening in the world, we can honestly say that the world has woken up and we're awake. We're fully awake. But now the question is, what now? What's next? Rabbi Friedman?
I think we spoke about the story that the chief rabbi of Israel years ago was visiting the Rebbe in Brooklyn, and they spoke about the problems in Israel, the problems in Jewish communities all over the world. And Rabbi Lau, who was a survivor of the concentration camps, said to the Rebbe, "So what's going to be?" Which is what we're asking now. What's going to be? So the Rebbe said to him, instead of asking what's going to be, we should ask, what more can we do? And when I heard that story, I thought about, why did the Rebbe say, instead of asking what's going to be? Is that not a good question? Is that not a valid question? You're talking about the chief rabbi of Israel, a leader, and the concern is what's going to be. That should be the main topic, shouldn't it? So I was wondering why the Rebbe would say that. I mean, you can say we should worry about what more we can do, but why not ask what's going to be? So knowing the Rebbe's policy and the Rebbe's philosophy, if you ask the Rebbe what's going to be, it could be that the Rebbe doesn't want to speak about it because the Rebbe wants to focus on positive things, and what's going to be is not so positive, so let's not talk about it. Well, that's not the Rebbe's policy. The other could be, the Rebbe says, what's going to be? How can you change what's going to be? It's not in your control, so why even bother thinking about it? Let's think about something we can control. What more can we do? That sounds a little more like the Rebbe, but still not completely. Until I came to the conclusion, if you ask the Rebbe what's going to be, he would be very surprised. What's going to be? You know exactly what's going to be. Mashiach is going to come. The world is going to have peace. The world is going to become perfect the way it's meant to be. That's what's going to be. What's the question? Okay, so if there's no question about what's going to be, can we all go to sleep? We've got nothing to worry about. Let's all just retire. And the Rebbe says, no. You still have to ask, what more can I do? So I think that should be our guiding light. What's going to be? It's going to be fantastic. The question is, will I contribute to this fantastic, or just stand by like a spectator and watch it happen? That's the only question. Now, it just happens to be, by coincidence, it happens to be that today is the first day of the month of Adar. What is the month of Adar? The month that in Purim occurs in this month. What is the story of Purim? Everything looked bad. It looked terrible. There was a decree hanging over the entire Jewish population of 127 countries. But v'nahapechu, it got turned upside down, and instead of being a tragedy, it became one of our happiest holidays. That's what we should be looking forward to. I think it's also the anniversary of the war in Ukraine.
Yes, Rabbi Friedman, and that's why it's utmost important for you to be with us today, because in 3 days and there's no end in sight. That's the sad part. We had this conversation. You said that if a war must be, it must be also very quick. Well, this is definitely not a quick war, and unfortunately,
this is nasty.
It's nasty. It's getting nastier. It's taking a toll on people.
It's not a war. It's just terrorism.
We can say that for sure.
Yeah. Okay, so what happened with Purim? Evil people are crazy, but they're not stupid. They have a high degree of intelligence. Because if they weren't, they would not succeed in their evil to the degree that they succeed. Haman was not stupid. He knew that everyone in history who had started up with the Jews ended up with a miserable, untimely death. So why was he starting up? Well, he was very smart. He carefully chose a day that is not good for the Jews. And he figured, if you find the right day, that's the key. All the others started up with the Jews on the wrong day. They didn't take into account that there's a certain mazel that is sometimes strong and sometimes weak. If you want to attack a people, you have to find their weak time, their weak season. So he looked and he saw and he studied and he thought about it, and he came to a very interesting conclusion. The day that Moshe passed away is a very bad day for the Jews. So he decided that that would be the day that he would launch his attack. Very smart, very smart. Just not smart enough. He didn't know that the same day that Moshe passed away was also his birthday. Moshe was born on the 7th of Adar, and he passed away on the 7th of Adar, 120 years later. So instead of being a bad, bad day for the Jews, it was actually a very good day for the Jews, because Moshe was born. Interestingly, could it be that he didn't know that? Could it be that he did all that research and didn't know that Moshe was born the same day he died? I think what it was is that in those days, the day you die was considered much more significant than the day you're born. Nobody celebrated birthdays. It was considered insignificant. So what if you were born? You haven't accomplished anything. But at the end of your life, when you're accomplishing, when you're doing great things like Moshe was doing, about to bring the Jews into the promised land, and then you die, whoa, that's significant. So the fact that he was born just didn't count. That's the thinking that prevailed in those days. Because life was so uncertain that being born was not a celebration. You had to wait and see. Will he be healthy? Will he live long? Will he accomplish anything? What are you celebrating just because the kid was born? That's not an achievement. The Rebbe in our time turned that around. And he said, a birthday is a very significant event. And it should be celebrated, even with a birthday cake. So that was Haman's mistake. He thought this would be a time of weakness for the Jewish people. It turned out to be a time of strength and blessing. So because Adar is now cosmically, universally, a month of joy, Putin made a big mistake launching the attack in the month of Adar. So, but the fact that it is the anniversary should give us optimism. It's gonna fail. The whole thing is gonna fail. The whole thing is just ill-conceived. And it's going to turn out to be a time of joy for both the Russians and the Ukrainians, the people, the innocent victims. This terrible evil will turn around and become a source, because, you know, one of the things that Haman complained about, he went to the king, to Ahasuerus, for permission to launch his attack. One of the things he said, why do I want to eliminate the Jews, God forbid? Because they don't work. They're parasites. Exactly what the communists said. They're parasites, because every time you ask them to go to work, they say, oh, not today, it's Shabbos. Not today, it's Pesach. Not today, it's Sukkot. Like, when do they ever work? So God said in heaven, you evil man, because of you, there's going to be another day we don't work. We're going to add another holiday because of you. So this will turn out to be a holiday for the Russian people and for the Ukrainians. It's destined.
I just have to say,
to become
amen.
a time of joy.
It's just amazing. Thank you so much, Rabbi Friedman, for this hope, because this is what happens when something lingers on so long. Unfortunately, the thing that is hardest to keep on to is the hope. Rabbi Friedman, but people can't stop asking one question. We've spoke about it, and it's for sure. People are getting better. People are definitely getting better everywhere. They're waking up. They understand what's moral, what's immoral, what are the priorities in life, and that's fantastic. However, the leaders are getting more and more, I don't want to say evil, but bad for sure. So we're just seeing how bad the leadership of the world is. It just has become really, really revealed. A lot of people are actually quitting their posts, thank God, because they realize it too. So in this situation, when the people are getting better, but the leaders are getting worse. How will this be resolved at the end? Because it seems like, isn't it always up to the leaders?
It's very little up to the leaders. But listen to the strange thing that just happened. Biden showed up in Kiev.
Yeah, that was weird.
Very weird. The man is useless. He has never done a good thing in his life. All of a sudden, without any warning and without any publicity, he shows up and promises aid. What in the world happened to him? This is so out of character. Who did that? Who gave him that courage or that wisdom or that decency? He doesn't have any of that. He has no courage, no wisdom, and no decency. So who's pulling the strings here? Yeah. The hearts of leaders are in the hands of God.
Rabbi Friedman, for sure. But at the same time, we can look at how, he showed up over there, and it's quite a big flight. It takes a lot of time to get to Ukraine. Yet Ohio hasn't received a visit in 2 weeks after a train derailment with toxic spill, and nobody really sends anybody there. How is that okay? I mean, why do we start caring more about what's going on outside of our own country and less at what's going on at home? Don't these people deserve some kind of attention and help from their own government that are there to protect them and to help them and to aid them? Well, at least we were told so.
Well, that actually strengthens the point. The government is completely useless. They're self-centered. They think only of themselves. They're not available to anybody. And all of a sudden, he shows up in Kiev. That is so strange. It is so strange. Like, what is it? Got a dibuk in him or something? Like, what happened? The fact that he's not responsible in any way at all for the good of the country or for... But all of a sudden, he takes a secret mission. Who pulled this off? How did this happen? And what's going to come of this?
Great question.
Stand by for surprises.
Oh no, Rabbi Friedman, more?
More good surprises.
And with Russia's permission, as far as we know, unless we're being misled as always, that his trip was announced to the Russian government, and the Russian government is, sure, we're not going to bomb while you're there. Let's see how it's going to be.
Stranger than fiction.
Yeah, super weird. Nobody understands what's going on in the world anymore. So, okay, more surprises it is.
Yeah, the surprises again are going to be people we think are good will turn out to be not so good, and people we think are bad are going to turn out to be useful. So, no reason for despair, because good news can happen just as easily as bad news, and the good news is supposed to happen, the bad news is not.
Rabbi Friedman, but at the same time, I mean, I don't want to go into the negative direction, for sure not, but it's very hard to avoid. I mean, for instance, the fact that today during the address to the nation, Vladimir Putin announced that he is withdrawing from the nuclear treaty program, and now it's, what is it? Anybody can do anything they want to do with their nuclear power. That's kind of scary. I mean, how do we deal with this one? Because that seems to be like the end. Sounds like the end, God forbid. But whenever we say nuclear, that's pretty much the final exclamation mark there.
Is it terribly surprising? If he was part of the agreement, could he be trusted anyway? It doesn't make much of a difference. He came out and said it out loud, what everybody was thinking. It's not going to make any difference. Nobody wants to be hit with an atomic bomb, with a nuclear bomb. So here's really the issue. The war is horrible. The thinking and the character of our leaders, horrible. Which, by the way, is one of the predictions of the times before Mashiach, that the leaders will be like dogs. Dogs don't lead. The wolf pack has a leader. There's no leader of a pack of dogs. Whoever is leading keeps looking back to see where the people want to go, and that's where they go. They're not leaders. So, yeah, the war is terrible, and there's no way of prettying it up and making it any less horrible than it is. The question is, how does that affect your opinion of life, the world, reality? It is bad. The world is good, life is good, and the future is good, no matter how bad this is. So that's the trick. The trick is, don't look at one condition or two or three and say that's life. That's the way it's always gonna be. No. It's just a detail. And the detail is bad. It's very bad. There is nothing good about it for both the Russians and the Ukrainians. So it needs to be fixed. But life? You judge all of life by what goes on in Kiev? That's wrong. So life is good, the world is good, people are good, and the future is good. That's why this thing is terrible. It's like a sore thumb. What's it doing in a good world? Why is this happening when the world is supposed to be celebrating its perfection? So it's really annoying and upsetting and disturbing. But it is not a prediction for the future. And it is not a description of life, which is what people do when they want to discourage the masses. There will always be war. You're never going to be safe. We don't buy it anymore. Can't do that to people anymore. We've heard all these panic, dire warnings in our own lifetime. I remember population overpopulated world. We must limit population. This was in the 60s. Since then, I think there are 2 billion more people in the world. And we're still not overpopulated. But I remember people, particularly Jewish people, who buy every social issue. Jewish men ran out to have themselves sterilized. Because you can't increase the population anymore. And in those days, there was no reversing the operation. It was horrible. And now to think it was all a lie. It was all simply a lie. An intentional lie, not an innocent mistake. So then after that came, we're running out of water. Then we're running out of wheat. We were dumping wheat in the ocean to keep the prices up, but we're running out of wheat. We're all going to starve. Then we were running out of air because the ozone layer is broken. None of that ever happened.
Rabbi Friedman, but what about this new world order that everybody is talking about? Total control, global control, somebody knows best, and everybody else should be submissive. How do... Also nothing new?
Absolutely correct. It's correct. There's going to be one world order, and one person is going to run the world. Just not the people that you think. So to every lie, there's a grain of truth. The grain of truth is we are now on the stage ready for world dominion by godliness, not by evil. That's Mashiach. One interesting concept. Concerning Mashiach, Rambam says that when Mashiach comes, he will force the world to behave. He will force Jews to be observant of Judaism and force the whole world to be moral. And that's really disappointing because when Mashiach comes, we still will have to be forced. We won't be willing. That's disappointing. So the Rebbe explained it the way only the Rebbe can. What does it mean to force somebody? Is it even possible to force anyone to do anything? The answer is no. You cannot force anyone to do anything. Because the strongest threat, you put a gun to somebody's head and you say, bow to this idol or I'll shoot you. Have you forced him to bow? No, you gave him the option. Or I'll shoot you. Now, if I say, go ahead and shoot me, then I will never bow. So if you really want me to bow to the idol, it's not going to happen. So no, you cannot make me bow. Then how will Mashiach force? You behave yourself living in my house, you better behave yourself or I'll throw you out. Have you forced me to behave? No. Throw me out. I don't care. So what's Mashiach going to do? How do you force? There's only one way. Convince me. If you convince me that that is the right way to go, you have forced me. You've taken away all my options. Because once I know this is the right way, I have no choice. If it's as clear as day, I have no choice. So what's Mashiach going to do? Not going to threaten, because threat doesn't force. What he's going to do is make it so obvious, so clear, so real, that the world was created for a purpose. And that purpose is extremely important. And we are partners in the fulfillment of that purpose. And the time has come for the purpose to be realized and completed. It'll be so clear that you just won't have an option.
Amazing, Rabbi Friedman.
And that's what we're seeing. We're seeing this happen. What choice do you have? Is everybody going to transition so that every man becomes a woman and every woman becomes a man? And that'll be the end of the human race? It's so clear. Like somebody said, and this is really so accurate and true, an atheist is not a person who doesn't believe anything. An atheist is a person who will believe anything, just not God. The atheist will believe that we're running out of water and we're running out of air and we're running out of space and a man can be a woman and a man can give birth and we come from apes. I mean, they'll believe anything as long as it's not God. So being an atheist makes you much more gullible. This big atheist, I forget which one of the famous who wrote books and was on the news every now and then, somebody pushed him, So what do you believe? How did it all begin? How did it all begin? And at first he said, I don't care. It's not science how it began. That's not a scientific question. Well, actually it is, but okay. Eventually, after being pressured, he said, there is a theory that there was a very advanced civilization who were very, very smart, and they designed this whole thing, and then they became extinct. But then he said, well, wait a minute, you can just ask me where they came from. Yes. Now, look, this guy who claims to be a perfectly rational human being is ready to believe that there was an ancient civilization who were very sophisticated, smart enough to design an entire universe. You are so gullible. You're willing to believe that? So an atheist is not rational. Believing in God makes more sense than any theory that has ever been proposed. The problem is knowing that there's a God without hearing him tell us what he created the world for is a little frustrating. So yes, there's a God, but you have no idea what he's thinking. Well, that's not useful. So the Torah tells us what God is thinking. It is the most rational of all books, not the most holy, the most rational. And that's why it's going to reach a point where you have no choice but to listen. Because it's so obvious and it's so clear. Without it, we're verblunget. And that means exactly what it sounds like.
Rabbi Friedman, amazing. Thank you so much. I mean, realistically, just about, half an hour ago, things looked so much darker than right now. And you just put things in perspective with your wisdom, with your knowledge, with your amazing energy. And it's so priceless for us and for the whole world that you do this for everybody on your YouTube channels, in your lectures. And it's just, wow. Can't thank you enough. Can't thank Hashem enough for giving you to the world in such a needed time. And we're super grateful on behalf of our entire community, our radio, and everybody else in the world. Rabbi Friedman, thank you. And be well. And we so look forward to another Thank God It's Tuesday, because Tuesday gives us this amazing opportunity to get your light and your wisdom and spread it around a little bit more.
Thank you for the compliments. But next week, in the middle of the month of Adar, we should have so much good news that they won't be able to keep it off the news.
Amen. That will be the best ever. Thank you so much, Rabbi Friedman. Have a wonderful week.
Thank you.
Ну, а всем, кто нас сегодня слушал, огромное спасибо. Спасибо, что вы есть. Спасибо, что вы хотите, чтобы жизнь была лучше, светлее для вас и для окружающих. Пожалуйста, ищите вот эту хорошую, добрую информацию, ее полно на YouTube от гениальных таких раввинов, как Rabbi Manis Friedman, и там есть и других много. Поэтому ищите добро, ищите свет, и давайте его немножко распространять. Вместе с этими словами я, Аня Пекерман, и передача Thank God It's Tuesday прощаются со всеми до следующей недели.